Good morning, Codger Biker here, and this morning I'd like to say tanks, 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 tanks. Okay, well, it's a beautiful day today in Merseyside, just crossing the New Runcorn Bridge, or Mersey Gateway, whatever it's called. Just going to revisit a place where I got into trouble last year on my Africa Twin. I love the Africa Twin. Above 5 miles an hour, best bike I think I've ever ridden. But below 5 miles an hour, an absolute nightmare, at least for me, at 5'10". I should also mention that I've got my summer crash helmet on, which is a lot noisier than my winter crash helmet. It also squeezes my face more, so I may be talking in a rather strange way, if you can even hear me above the wind. So today I only want to look at one thing really, and that is the KTM's approach to the fuel tanks on the 790, and why I think it's the greatest thing, if not since sliced bread, at least in the past few years. I've ridden other bikes with tanks in different places. For instance, the Honda NC750X has got a tank below the seat. Lovely bike too. But only the 790 Adventure that I know of places the tanks either side of the engine, low down like a pair of moobs. I think they reminded me of when I first bought the bike. So yes, well, I have a full tank of fuel, 20 litres, which is the first great thing about these tanks, is those 20 litres give you at least 250 miles. I know it says 400 kilometres, but I found that I was getting 250 miles before it switched to, or before I got a fuel warning light, which would probably be another, I believe it's 4 litres, so probably another 50 miles. So you could almost push 300 miles if you had to. So that's the first thing, just the phenomenal range that you get with these two tanks. And the other good thing is that you can fill this bike up to your heart's content. It doesn't affect the balance of it at all. In the end, with the Africa Twin, I used to ride it around with half a tank, which was okay around the town, which meant I had to go to the petrol station more often. With this one, coming up to 1,000 miles almost, and I've only been about 6 or 7 times. And the last time I came here was a nightmare. The Africa Twin fell over.
Sometimes it's so very easy to be me. I can't see the problems you can see. I am high above reality. Then I see the fall and I fall. Save me from myself. Oh, save me from myself. Those days when I'm standing high above the crowd, they are trying hard to pull me down. I just smile and take.
I don't know if you can see those tanks, but that's a protective cover on the outside of them, which is supposed to be very strong. Obviously that's the one flaw in the positioning of these things and probably why nobody else has done it. If you have an accident, they are likely to be impacted very hard. Now I believe they're very easy to remove, so maybe they come loose. Hard to say. I have seen these panels after a crash and somebody had come off at reasonable speed and they'd worn through, but the tank was still intact. Photographers. So that's the view of from the other side. To me they look like moobs. I think they're actually more noticeable on this version of the bike than they are on the R version. So, why are they so good? Well, I find that these bikes, this bike is actually a very light bike, which helps as well, because it's only probably 205 kilograms when it's fueled, whereas my Africa Twin's a DCT, full tank of fuel, probably 250 kilograms. So this is 40 kilograms less, at least. So it's just easier to move around, but more than anything is the fact that it balances so well. It doesn't ever feel particularly like it's going to fall over. I find I can just lean it on my thigh, move it around easily, and that's all down to those tanks, I believe. Before this I had the Duke, which was only had a very small fuel tank, but it could have its moments where it could feel a little bit top heavy. Sometimes useful on a road bike, that flicked in and out of corners very fast. I wonder if that helped. When you get on these higher bikes and heavier touring bikes, it can be a problem. At least for me anyway. I'm being honest. And I was taught to ride with putting your left foot down when you came to the lights and balancing on one leg, which works fine. And I could have had the R version and ridden it around like that. And 99% of the time, that's fine. Unfortunately, every now and then, one day out of 100, that doesn't work. There'll either be a big pothole on that side of where you want to put your foot, or it's an emergency stop, or a gust of wind catches you and you need to put your other foot down. On this bike I can put both feet down just and hold it easily. So yeah, for me those tanks are the most radical part of this bike, but also the reason why I bought it. I was hanging on, or I had been hanging on for a Yamaha T700, but when I saw the seat height of it and the height of the fuel tank, it'd be great off-road, but riding around the town or on roads in the real world, no, not for me, I'm afraid. If I was 6'2", yeah, not a problem, but I'm not. I'm 5'10" maximum in my boots, that is. So I am babbling. Oh, for the person who said, oh, you never showed the bike. Well, you've seen plenty of it now. It's pretty much still stock. I have got that panel still in there, which I'm going to take off and just put it on when I go green laning. Just leave the bolts in, put it on when I need it. I've just got a bag strapped to the back today and a rear camera. Other than that, it's perfectly stock. I tried to use a navigation to come here, but I don't get on with it. It's not very clear. So I think I'll be putting the TomTom back on. I've got a TomTom sat nav for motorcycle, might as well use it. Okay. Right, so just to look at the tanks on this camera, you can see that they wrap around the side of the engine, around the front of it, and these panels here are to protect it should it fall over. Now obviously BMW knew what they were doing all those years with the GS, getting the engine weight low down, and this is KTM's solution to it, I think. They're the main reason why I bought this bike. One was the weight of it, and the other one was the fact that I had an experience here the last time I was here where the bike fell over in the wind and blew over completely. And you can probably see this road's got quite a steep camber, both downwards and both to the right as I look at it, and it can catch you out. And with a top heavy bike, well, I might show you a shot of my humiliation. Things you see. Okay, so this is actually Halton Castle, which is a ruin, closed today. The gate's over there, but can't get in. Not actually ever been into it, but it's interesting. A typical English castle, high up on a hill, and it's funny the things you see. I've just seen somebody doing what looks like a fashion shoot with a whip and a leather dress. That's the sort of thing you see when you're out and about in the week. That's the old Runcorn Bridge there, that's the town of Runcorn. The Welsh Mountains over there where I was the other day. Okay, I've come to another stately home to get away from the S&M photo shoot. This is a pretty flat road. You can see that I've got the balls of both of my feet on the floor, stuck out to the side. There's no point in having your feet too close together because it basically makes you into like a three-wheeled bike, and that would just fall over sideways. So the beauty of this bike is that I've no problem stopping. Generally I stop with my left foot down and my right foot on the brake. It's just how I've always ridden. So I come along, brake with my left foot, brake my right foot, put my left foot down flat. It's completely flat and stuck out to the side. And that would be generally how I would ride. And on this bike it's very easy because the bike never feels like it's going to move. Sometimes I'll go along, I'll slow down, I'll come to a halt and put my right foot down. Always trickier because you've got to use the front brake, and you don't really want to be using that if you're turning at all because the bike would be more likely to fall over. Even with this bike so stable, it just doesn't feel like it's going to fall over even when I stop with my right foot. So for me, these fuel tanks, are a game changer in terms of the confidence it gives you when you're in tricky situations. You can't always ride on perfect roads, and it's an off-road bike after all. To be honest, riding an off-road bike, the Africa Twin, any of them, if you're standing up, it's not an issue. As soon as you stand up, you put your weight on through the pegs, and basically that stabilises the bike. So I'm not really talking about off-road. It's more a situation of being on the road, but in difficult circumstances. Also manoeuvring the bike around at home, I find it much easier to swing it around in the drive or whatever. I'm still trying to get the vision of the S&M model out of my brain. She's still there at the moment, which is befuddling me somewhat. So I'm probably going to call this a day for now. I'm a big fan of Rick and Morty, and to quote Rick and Morty, quoting us the Canadian saying, I'd like to say, peace out. Codger Biker is out.